Christians around the world are celebrating the most important day in the church calendar. For the faithful, Easter Sunday marks the day Jesus Christ was resurrected, following his crucifixion 2 days previously. Pope Francis used his Easter message to give an impassioned appeal for an end to the fighting in the Middle East, saying peace is never made with arms.
Easter, Christianity's holiest holiday. As is customary, Pope Francis led this year's Easter Sunday services in the Vatican's St. Peter's Square in front of some 30,000 faithful. During his address, he called for respect for the principles of international law and for peace in war-ravaged places, naming the conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East.
I appeal once again that access to humanitarian aid be ensured to Gaza, and call once more for the prompt release of the hostages seized last October 7th, and for an immediate ceasefire in the Strip.
Despite persistent speculation about the 87-year-old pontiff's health, he appeared on good form. In Jerusalem, where the Bible says Jesus was crucified, buried, and rose from the dead, a scaled-down Easter Mass was held to a relatively empty church. Usually, the streets around the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem's Old City would be thronging with Palestinian Christians. But this year, since the war began on October 7th, Palestinians need special permission to cross checkpoints. This is not the only war-torn place at worship. 2,000 kilometers to the north in Ukraine, Catholics marked their third Easter since Russia's full-scale invasion with a midnight mass. Pilgrims inside St. Nicholas Cathedral in Kyiv held candles and prayed while priests gave blessings. Many of those gathered inevitably prayed for peace and victory. In Britain, King Charles made his first official public appearance since revealing his cancer diagnosis in February. He and Queen Camilla attended an Easter service at St. George's Chapel in Windsor and met well-wishers afterwards.
Now for more on the Pope's Easter address, let's speak to journalist Seema Gupta in Rome. Seema, the Pope's blessing comes as at the centrepiece of a key day on the religious calendar, and Francis again used the platform to call out world leaders.
Exactly. I mean, it's his Urbi et Orbi. Now, that's his message to the city of Rome and to the world. It's something he delivers at Christmas and at Easter. And it really is the culmination of the entire Holy Week when he gives this blessing and message. And he talked about conflicts around the world, but starting off most pointedly, of course, the situation in the Holy Land, where he said and made a very clear plea for humanitarian aid to be delivered to those in Gaza and for prompt release of all those hostages that were taken on the 7th of October. He called for an immediate ceasefire. That was his message from the central balcony at St. Peter's Basilica, speaking to the tens of thousands of people that had been gathered there. He also talked about other conflicts, specifically the situation in Ukraine, in which he called for a general exchange of prisoners between Russia and Ukraine. So touching on those key hotspots around the world, but it wasn't just that. In the Middle East, he talked about Lebanon, the situation there, as well as Syria, suffering from a 14-year-long war. He even went as far afield as Asia, talking about the Rohingya community and pointing out they are suffering in Myanmar. And of course, the continent of Africa, whether it's the situation in Sudan or in Congo. So really touching on key hotspots around the world, but the message that he had was one of peace. Now that's what he's been calling for, and that's what he reiterated again today. Another issue that, of course, top on his mind that has been there throughout his papacy of Pope Francis, he talked about the plights of migrants and also spoke out against human trafficking. So topics clear to his heart, and he spoke about them at his message today on Easter Sunday.
So the pontiff was able to perform the blessing, Zima, but his health has been a constant watch recently. Did his health have any effect on his Easter schedule this time around?
Well, it's been in the lead up to Easter Sunday. Last week on Palm Sunday, we already saw him make the decision not to actually deliver his homily. Of course, this is a very crucial week in the Christian calendar, in the Catholic calendar, and he has a lot of activities. So he made that decision, but he also made the decision on Good Friday not to participate in the Way of the Cross procession at the Colosseum Monument here in Rome. Now, that is an event that happens in the nighttime hours. But the decision was made at the very last minute, just 5 minutes before he was to appear. He made the decision not to follow it there and instead to follow it from his home inside the Vatican. He said he was doing this to conserve his energy. And we did see him, though, perform full force as far as the Easter Vigil was concerned. It was a service that lasted more than 2 hours. He delivered a fairly long homily. And also today on Easter Sunday, at the end of the service, hopping on his Pope-mobile and driving around the square, greeting the faithful. It's important for Pope Francis at these events to appear close to the faithful. And I think that was the message he wanted to bring out, despite the fact that he is dealing with various health issues.
Zima Gupta in Rome, many thanks.